So, hi.
Is that going over?
Today we're going to learn about two very special women, Naomi and Ruth. And it's in memory of a third special woman, our dear cousin, Hindi Krinsky Kenneforth. Hindalea, yeah, who tragically passed away this Friday at the young age of 32, leaving behind 5 beautiful children and a mighty strong husband. And may we merit to the coming of Mashiach soon and the resurrection of all of those who left us too early. So, we are in Ruth in chapter 2, verse 2. Last time we mentioned we talked a little bit about gifts, and we'll continue a little bit to finish that subject and actually expand on it before we finish it. Naomi and Ruth are in Eretz Israel now. They came back. Naomi came with her daughter-in-law Ruth, right? And they came with nothing. Everything that Naomi, who was the wealthiest from the wealthiest family in the land of Israel before she left, came back with nothing. What she did have. So she didn't have any family, any immediate family. All of her relatives were gone. The immediate relatives from her immediate family died in Moab. Her brothers and sisters at the same time died in the land of Israel. Her parents were gone. She had nobody from the immediate first level relatives.
They had left?
10 years. 10 years elapsed since she left, and what she did have is second level relative one, a first cousin, Boaz. Some say that he was her uncle, but most likely he was her first cousin. Most say that. And he was at the time how do I stop this nonsense? He was at the time the leader of the Jewish people, and he just lost his wife exactly the same day that they came back. So he was in the midst of sitting Shiva. What happened is they came on the second day of Pesach. That's when exactly the time of the funeral of Boaz's wife. And Boaz did not sit Shiva on during Pesach because you're not allowed to start Shiva during Chol HaMoed. And he started Shiva right after Chol HaMoed. Meantime, the harvest started, but people generally did not really work on Pesach. On Chol HaMoed, you don't work unless it's extreme circumstance. So the story that we are dealing with right now finds us basically right after Pesach.
So you said he was the leader of the Jewish people.
He was the leader of the Jewish people.
He was a judge.
He was a judge, yes. He was the judge of Tzan or Yiftzan.
We didn't read about him.
We did read about him. He had a different name, and we read 3 psukim, Yiftzan.
Okay.
He had we did learn about him during when we learned the book of Shoftim. Anyway, she didn't have any relatives except Boaz. Boaz was busy sitting Shiva, so he didn't have the bandwidth to take care of her and to offer her help even. He was sort of out of pocket, commission. Out of commission. And she did have one piece of land that used to belong to the family, one field that used to belong to her family before they left to Moab. So they left to Moab when the famine started. Famine means there was no rain, so nothing grows. So the field was totally, it was not worth dealing with because nothing was growing anywhere. So the field was totally bare. There are those who say that the field was leased to Boaz, who was the brother or the nephew of Elimelech, the husband of Naomi. So he got it to take care of it. So and for a nominal fee, because he did all the work, but there was nothing to earn from the fruits of the field. But nonetheless, it was under his control at the moment.
But she still owned it.
She still owned it, and she later will see that she tried to sell it. But as we mentioned last time, somebody can have two city blocks in Manhattan and not have a dime to buy food with, which makes them an official poor person, because the fact that they have real estate that they don't have liquid assets, it's not cash poor, exactly. So she was cash poor for sure, so what do you do? So she was one of those who refused to take any gifts, and she was following the suggestion in Mishle, in Proverbs, that says "Soneh matanot tichyeh," that a person who wants to live should hate gifts, should not accept gifts. And we discussed the two opinions. What's wrong with gifts? So one opinion is that what's wrong with gifts is that the gift itself is bad because that demonstrates that the person does not believe in God. Because under normal circumstances, people don't live off of other people's money. Under normal circumstances, people work and earn money on their own. So if someone works and does whatever they need to do, and they can't make it, they don't have a good job, they can't find the next customer, so they sort of default to a feeling that God cannot take care of me. God is taking care of 7-8 billion people very easily, but right now He's failing with me. So let me go look for some gifts because I cannot otherwise take care of my family and myself. So this is why some people fall into the trap of seeking gifts or accepting gifts. And according to that opinion, a gift is bad, period. Second opinion is saying that gifts are, in and of itself, they're not that bad, there's nothing too terrible about gifts, but they lead to terrible things. They lead to, it's like bribery. If somebody gets a gift from someone with significant value, it's like bribery. Like they got an enormous amount of debt that they're indebted to the person who gave them the gift, and therefore they would act differently towards that person, not necessarily the way they should act towards this person. If it's a person that doesn't do the right things, they're not going to tell them. If a person can steal and kill and do all kinds of things, and they'll continue to do business with him just because they received a gift, a significant gift. So therefore, it is not recommended. There are other things that excessive gift receiving can cause a person, and that is they start to desire things that they don't have, and they see that they can get them. So, you have that coffee maker, and so, let me try to figure out how I get that as a gift, because I can't buy it myself. So that's falling under lo tachmod, so you want something that you don't have.
If that were true, we wouldn't give gifts on Purim.
So we are going to talk about gifts on Purim, and we're going to talk about other gifts, because our society is such that we do accept gifts, Anybody who had a baby or a bar mitzvah, a bas mitzvah, or a wedding, or, we accept gifts. We give gifts all the time. So what's up with that? Soneh matanot tichyeh. Why do we do that? So we'll talk about the practical implications of sending and giving and receiving gifts. We mentioned that the Gemara is giving an option. The Gemara is not the halacha yet, but it's giving an option. And the Gemara is saying those who are interested in receiving gifts, they should receive gifts in a certain way, meaning not products and not to be indebted to someone. You can get a service. You can be hosted by, like Elisha Navi. Get some gifts, but with strings attached and with caution. And the other option is don't accept gifts, like Shmuel Navi, who whenever he was traveling, he took everything that he needed. So that's where we stopped last time. Now, what is the halacha? The halacha is very interesting. And the halacha is basically, I will quote from both the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam. The Rambam says, Hatzadikim Agmurim, the pious people, V'anshe Maaseh, and those are practical people, Lo yikablu matana me'adam, should not accept any gift from anybody, but they have to trust God, Botchim b'Hashem Baruch Hu, right? And they don't trust the people who are kind and giving gifts, because Soneh matanot tichiyah. Okay? And the Rambam says, it's in Ilchot Talmud Torah, where we're discussing the fact that everybody should learn as much as they can, the Rambam right away puts over there a footnote that it's a great advantage for people to be sustained from their own work. And that's how Hasidim did it. They don't just go to Koilel forever and sit there and learn. There are a few special people that Toratam U'Manotam, that their job is their work, but they're far and few in between. That's the way it's supposed to be. So that's what the Rambam says, and the Shulchan Aruch says that Midat Chasidut is not to accept gifts, and it's one of the interesting halachot, that the actual halacha is that Midat Chasidut is not to do certain thing. It's not common, It's
gifts are interchangeable with charity.
No. Gifts are not interchangeable with charity. Charity has a different. We will talk about charity soon. Anyway, so that is the halacha. So the halacha basically is taking the advice of the Gemara. The halacha is not saying everybody needs to be a chassid and a tzaddik gamur, and they don't say don't accept gifts like they said in many other occasions. Don't do this, don't do that. So you shouldn't, but you can. So it is basically adopting the advice that the Gemara is giving us, that it's up to you. All right? Now, what do we do nowadays? Obviously, we all accept gifts.
A question.
Yeah.
Why does it focus on the receiving of gifts and not the giving of gifts?
Because the giving of the gifts is an act. It is an act of charity, in a way.
No, but it's only charity when a person needs it.
Right, but you don't know.
A person doesn't need it.
Well, you don't know the bank account situation of everybody you're giving gifts to. So, and it's also a very good way to control demand. When there is no demand, you don't have the product. So when people don't accept it, so a person can be charitable and want to share and want to give to others, but the receiver that's where you have in several places where
it's just funny because if it's there are many times when it talks about in the Torah you should not do and you should do,
right?
I think,
about the person.
But here it's only on the receiving end.
Right. There is another occasion where the stress is on the receiver. Shochad, right? Bribery. It says you shouldn't take bribery.
Never
because
says you shouldn't give it.
Exactly. Now, because why? Because sometimes you give it without even knowing that you give it. The shochad dvarim, there are things that you can say to people that will construe to be shochad, to be a bribe. So you have to stop it at the receiving end. If you don't accept, there is nobody who gives. So this is a very similar situation. But again, what do we do? So there are several exemptions or several situations where gifts are allowed. For example, usually the gifts that we give, typically, are token gifts. They're not gifts that are going to alter somebody's lives. You know, you give a book to a bar mitzvah boy, so they have a book. You know, you give a stretchy to a baby, so they have some. You know, it's not life altering, and in a way, it's not even a gift. It's a deposit, because when your child will have a bar mitzvah, that person will give you a book. Will give your son a book. So it's basically an exchange, a social exchange. And, you know, we know that some people are actually, keeping track of, this guy gave to my wedding $100, so I'm going to give them $100. You know, it's very much, you put money in a pool to circulate, and it's we all enjoy it, and we all feel good about it, and we all feel social about it. But it's not a gift in the true sense of the gift, in that sense, for some of those gifts. You know, people don't typically give, houses or cars or, expensive furniture. You know, they give some token. That's number one. Then there is, what if the person who you're giving the gift to is a very prominent individual, a very important person? Who's getting benefit? Who's receiving benefit from this gift giving? The giver more than the receiver, because he has everything. He doesn't need your book. He probably has it. He doesn't need your vase, whatever it is that you're giving. He doesn't need it. The fact that he accepted, or he or she accepted that gift from me, the no one, that makes me feel good. All right, so I actually got something for the gift. So it's a barter agreement again. No problem. That is possible. It's actually legitimate, according to halacha, to give a gift to an important person. An example, it's interesting that the Rebbe, whenever people gave him books, so they gave him in different ways. So sometimes they gave the book to the Lubavitch library. Okay, so they gave the Lubavitch library, no problem. It's not him personally. Sometimes they gave the book for the Rebbe to review. They wrote a book, they published a book, and they sent to the Rebbe to review. So the Rebbe would review it, and many times would return the book or try to return the book. And in most cases, when the Rebbe kept it, he offered money. He actually sent money to people. He didn't want to receive the gift. $20, $15, whatever the book cost, he paid back. He was very, very careful not to take gifts like that.
I think that's called a tribute, isn't it? When you
a tribute.
Yeah, like when you give money to the king, it's a tribute.
Yeah, it's it can be taxes too, right? Giving money to the king. Now there is another interesting gift exemption, and that is during Sheva Brachot to a chatan and kala, to newlyweds. There is an obligation to give gifts. It's called, officially in the Gemara, it's called sivlonot. Those are gifts that are supposed to be given to the chatan and kala to make them happy for their new life, for the new home. So it's something that you should do. Now, the interesting thing is that the brisker, the Soloveitchiker from, not the last one before that, someone tried to send gifts for his son's wedding after the Sheva Brachot. So during the Sheva Brachot, he accepted it because it's required. I can't deprive you of doing a mitzvah that's written in the book. But after the Sheva Brachot, it's a gift. On the 8th day, he stopped receiving. I don't want gifts, and he sent them back. He did not accept them. Very interesting. Now, what about gifts that you get from someone who doesn't know you really and you don't know them? Like you buy 2 bags of tea and you get a coffee maker free. You get a gift from a vendor. So, according to those who said that the gift is not good in and of itself, you shouldn't be accepting gifts like that either. According to those who said that it should not be, you shouldn't be beholden to the person. You're not going to be beholden to Kraft's food or to Pepsi Cola for sending you a can of soda. You're not. So according to that, you're allowed to accept those gifts. Now, what happens when people, people have multiple children, like this Hindi that we were talking about? She had triplets. So all this, it's 8-year-old triplets. So people who had this kind of extreme happy event occur to them, many times start writing to all kinds of vendors, and they get car seats and diaper bags. They get a bunch of freebies from people. So should we get it or not? Are we allowed to get it or not? So again, because it's coming from a manufacturer, which is not an individual and it doesn't have a face and a name, really, it's most of the poskim says that it's allowed, especially if they get some benefit from it. They get to put on their website that we contributed 3 car seats to so and so because they had a triplet. So again, it's a barter agreement, no problem. If it's like getting money for advertisement. So that is the story with gifts in general. And now let's talk about the Mishloach Matanot La'Evyonim. Mishloach Manot Matanot La'Evyonim. So we all know that on Purim, one of the obligations, two obligations. We have an obligation to give gifts to the poor, and we have an obligation to give that's gifts to the poor, to give food to your friend. Okay, to give two types of food, to matanot, to your friend. So how come the halakha is obligating us, the Torah is obligating us to give gifts when, in another page the Torah is saying don't accept gifts? Got to be some consistency here. What's the scoop here? What's the story? So that is a common question, and the point is as follows, and the Rambam is very, very interesting, bring a very interesting point, which from here we learn why we're allowed to accept these gifts to begin with. What happens if someone wants to do more? There is the limit, the basic. The basic is that every person should give 2 gifts to 2 poor people. At least the amount of money that they can buy. A meal, so they can have a meal for Purim, right? So $10, $20 to 2 people. That's minimum, and at least one friend to give 2 pieces of 2 types of food, something that you say. Mezeinusan and agafen, also 2 brachot, something that 2 different types. What if you want to do more? A lot of us do way more than the basic. So, what should you do more? Should we find many more poor people, or should we just give it to all of our friends? What's better? So the Rambam has a very, very simple rule. It says, "Mutav la'adam la'arbot b'matanot la'evyonim." It's better that the person does more, increases the amount that he does for gifts to the poor, than to increase the expenditures on his su'udah or on mishloach manot. Why? Because there is no better and bigger and glorious happiness, simcha, than to make poor people happy. So the Rambam is basically saying that both mishloach manot and matanot la'evyonim make people happy, and the gifts to the poor makes them more happy. So if you have the opportunity to spend the same $10 and make someone happy, or make someone very happy, you should choose the opportunity to make someone very happy. So that's what the Rambam is. So that's why we should increase the amount of expenditures that we do with Matanot Levunim. Very nice. So how is that helping us understand why we're allowed to give and to get gifts to begin with? For a simple reason. Why are we? One of the reasons that explain why people should not really accept gifts is because gifts both is hurting us physically and spiritually. It's hurting us physically because we don't trust God that He's going to help us get the money, which in turn make Him, not really happy to give us what we need. So it can hurt us physically by receiving less, by getting less money, and therefore having less to live on. And it's also, as we mentioned, a bribe, so which makes us spiritually less attractive, less full of joyous on life, and less attractive. Now, there is another thing. So gifts in general, even not according to halacha, makes a person feel a little bit of shame. Because if I need, God forbid, to rely on gifts from other people in order to, we're not talking about the gifts for bar mitzvah, we're talking about the gifts for someone to sustain their life. If a person needs to rely on someone to have their breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's terrible. The person feels very, very, very bad about themselves and about the fact that they need to do it. So it's called nehama de chisufa. It's bread of shame, right? So when someone accepts gifts, they have the bread of shame. Now, when someone accepts the gifts of mishloach manot? Why are we giving mishloach manot? We give mishloach manot because we were saved, because we won we were saved from eradication. So the entire nation is happy about that. So it increases the happiness. Now, shame and happiness cannot really live in the same heart at the same time. The problem of gifts, which is that a person is ashamed of it, and therefore they're not going to get, because of the shame, they feel dragged down, and they're not going to live as much. The quality of life is not going to be as good because they received gifts. By being very happy, both of those things go away. There is no problem of shame because we are receiving the gifts in honor of the happiness of the celebration. And we're receiving the gifts because we all want to live together. Happiness is something that makes a person live longer. So there is no problem that that I'm going to live if I hate gifts. This gift is going to make me live more. Now, this is okay one day a year when it's acceptable by everybody to do that, and it's an obligation from the Torah to accept those gifts, to give those gifts, but it's not something that can change forever. In other words, we cannot say, okay, now from now on, every day I'm going to give gifts to my friends so they can be happy. That doesn't take the shame. The shame, the shame can go away if there is a one-time type of a special occasion to be happy. But we cannot replicate it day in, day out. So therefore, the rest of the year we should not accept gifts, but on Purim we should, because that increases the happiness amongst us, amongst the people who receive and give the gifts, and that's a positive thing.
So it sounds like you really need charity, not gifts.
I'm talking about mishloach manot. Yeah, it is a little bit.
But if you exclude all the instances where it's charitable, and there are many, because as you said, you never know what the other person has in their bank account.
Right.
Giving charity and accepting charity.
Giving charity is never a problem. Accepting a gift is a problem.
Giving charity is never a problem. Accepting charity is not a problem.
Is a problem.
It's not a problem.
Accepting charity is only when someone really, really needs it, and there is a definition of who needs it. Okay, so who is allowed to accept charity? Who is allowed to accept those gifts to the poor? Very simple. Someone who doesn't have liquid assets that can sustain him for 1 year. That's considered a person who is a
Does that
poor
mean
person.
There's no shame in that?
No.
There is shame.
Right.
There is shame, but
So that's not gifts, it's charity.
Charity.
There's something very confusing here.
between
Yes,
gifts and charity.
because we mix.
Mishloach manot is in a different category than
Yes.
matanot.
Matanot levinim is charity. Mishloach manot is a gift.
Right.
Yes, but
Even the
one
word is-
can
the word is
accept.
much
Right.
different.
What?
One can accept mishloach manot, of course.
Because
Of
it's
course,
but-
yeah, because
But
it's
the
it's
thing is, even if
But
it's
on
not,
Purim, not for the rest of the year.
it's a community celebration. We're all celebrating. It's like going to a big party.
But there is
Right.
no shame in the matana during the year. There's only shame in charity.
no, there is a shame in the matana. Nehama de chisufa. It's a bread of shame. If someone receive matana throughout the year, and that's what they need to live on. So the truth is that someone who receive. Okay. Let me try to clarify. Yes, there is shame in receiving charity as well. If you look at the Rambam, there are 8 levels of charity that how a person can receive or give charity, and the best way to receive a charity is when they what
To find employment.
is right. Is to find employment. But the one below that is if the person who gives doesn't know who is he giving to, and the person who receives doesn't know who is receiving from. That is everything else below that has some level of shame. Because a person who receives charity does feel asking homeless if they're enjoying their life.
but like giving like a gift or something. For instance,
Now you're jumping to gifts.
no, wait a minute. Hold on, wait.
Charity and gifts.
I had a round table. So I had tablecloths for this round table. I decided I didn't want the round table anymore. So I had round tablecloths. And I got a regular table that's rectangular. So I couldn't use the round tablecloths anymore. But Plony Ben Plony has a round table, and these tablecloths would be perfect for that person. You mean to tell me I can't give?
You can give whatever you want.
But he
And
shouldn't take them.
But he's not supposed to take.
He wants to swear
I
to
want to.
You can give whatever you want.
He should offer to pay you.
You
something.
can
question
give
it's
whatever
not
you
on
want,
you.
and that person, if they receive, maybe they give you something else now, maybe they give you something else later, maybe they're just deciding that it's okay, that you are an outstanding citizen. Receiving a gift from you is not going to make them beholden to you in any way, shape, or form, and they still trust in God that they'll give them the rest of the stuff, and they accept the gift. That's what the halakha says, that you're allowed. You're allowed if you want, under certain circumstances, you're allowed.
All
So
right.
they're definitely not, they're not terrible sinners if they got to your tablecloth.
Then there's even a more fine line. If I give the tablecloths, A, because I don't need them anymore, or B, because I know these people have a round table and they don't have enough money to buy tablecloths.
Then it's charity.
Then it's more charity than gifts, right? Right.
But they
But
don't give it in terms of gifts, just
right.
saying
You just don't need it.
I don't
So here's a thing. The round tablecloth that you have and you cannot use, for you they're worth nothing.
But he wants to get rid of it.
For you they're worth nothing.
That's right.
But they
I
don't
don't need
think
them.
it
So they're doing you a favor and taking something that's useless for you. So that's really not such a big, that's what I'm saying. It's called a token of, it helps them and it doesn't do anything to you.
And it helps
And it helps you
me.
too.
You get rid of
it.
stuff I don't
Exactly.
need.
All right. So these kind of things are for sure, not considered a problem. However, I know some people that will not accept it. Even though, we had all the rationale to accept it.
Even though things.
Even though the halacha says don't accept it.
The halacha says that midat chasidut is not to accept it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the halacha would be if you offered the tablecloths not to accept it for someone who was, very, very observant of that halacha. Because he'd
Right,
say,
right,
I'm
right.
sorry about the fact, I don't take gifts.
Right.
Take round tablecloths.
Right.
And if someone
Right?
give-
Am I right?
Yeah.
Hand me down.
I think we ought to
clothing
table that
children.
discussion.
Oh, now the story between relatives and between relatives, there is a whole different set of rules when you give children to parents and parents to children and siblings to each other. That has the function of ahavat re'im, ahavat achim, of love within the family, that trumps that problem. You helping someone within the family, you give a gift to your parents when they reach a certain age, or kids when they reach a certain age. That has again a separate set of rules. Anyway, let's move on from here and let's see how. So what happened with Ruth? With Naomi. Naomi did not want to receive gifts, period. She went according to the strict opinion, she didn't want to receive gifts. So even if Boaz was available to take care of her, she would have refused. So she discussed it with Ruth, and Ruth told her, "Vatomar Ruth Moaviyah el Naomi el Chana Asadeh ואלקתה בשיבולים אשר אמצא חן בעיניו ותאמר לה לכי ביתי." So Ruth, and again we're mentioning the fact that she was a Moabite, and we said before that whenever we mentioned that Ruth was a Moabite, there is a very good reason for it, because otherwise you're not allowed to tell a convert that they came from you Scandinavians. You're not allowed, you're a Christian, you're not allowed to tell them that. We not to embarrass them. So why are we mentioning the Ruth Moaviyah here? So the point here is that, and why is she calling her BT? Why is she calling her my daughter suddenly? And what is she sending her to do? So she's sending her to take the gifts to the poor. What is the gifts to the poor? Now, because of this problem of not accepting gifts, the halakha created this, the Torah created this instrument of gifts to the poor that requires the poor person to work on it. It's not a total gift. It's just giving him the permission to collect the food. And more specifically, we'll talk about 3 of them, which are related to collecting, harvesting wheat or barley from the fields. So one of them is shikhecha. When someone is forgetting, the owner is collecting everything, the farmer is collecting everything, and then they forgot a bundle. And as soon as the car moves, they see at the corner of their eyes that the bundle. Oh, I forgot the bundle. They cannot go back and pick up that bundle. They have to leave it in the field. Now, and the poor people has to watch for it, right? They have to wait till the owner leaves and then see if something is left. So there is some work to do with it. Now, you have people that are very organized and never forget anything, and it's a waste of time to follow them. There are those who are very forgetful and they always forget something, and but it's not a way for the poor people to really make a living, a sure living out of it, because somebody needs.
And I'm sure there's a specific distance that they had to have left in order for it to be shichacha.
It's not so much distance. It's the mindful. If you made bundles and then you passed it, you cannot go back, even if it's a few steps. It's not miles that you have to go. Mm-hmm. So there are rules about that, and the rules are very lenient towards the poor people. But some people don't forget. What can you do? So the poor people really, that's not a way to bank on something. Then we have the peah. What is peah? Peah is an unharvested corner of the field that was left aside, right? And the poor people can go and harvest it themselves and cut it themselves. The owner is not allowed to touch it, not allowed to cut it. You know, they can't say, I'll cut it and I'll leave it so it's easy for them. No, they have to work on it. The only time that the owner is obligated to actually do the work, it's when it's dangerous, like it's a date tree, you know. You have to climb many feet in the air to get to the dates. And if you have a few people trying to climb at the same time, somebody will lose it and fall and, God forbid, get hurt or die. So in that case, the owner must, take the dates and put them at the bottom of the tree. But otherwise, we're talking about wheat fields here. They're not allowed to touch it. Now, you can imagine that there are many things that are happening here with this corner of the field. Number one, it's usually easily accessible to the poor in the beginning of the property, you know. Why? Because the owner doesn't want everybody walking all over his property and all over his field to all the way to the end to get it. So they usually placed it in the beginning and in the front. So, you know, easy access. That's number one. Number two, it's easy picking for the poor people because it's all, you know, consolidated in one area. And you can imagine that there was a lot of fights. There was a lot of, you know, a lot of people.
There's only four corners.
There was one corner. It's one corner. They left only one corner.
Oh.
You have to leave about 1/60th. That's the halacha. 1/60th of the field has to be remain for the poor, and it needs to be all in the same place, ideally. Okay, there are some exceptions, but usually in the same place. So. People who have kids at home that are waiting for food, they're not asking, they're not please and excuse me. They just grab, you know, they just do whatever it takes to get the food. So there is a whole bunch of rules, a whole set of rules to police how the poor people can collect, can pick those, can harvest the peah. They're not allowed to fall on it and say everything that's under me is mine. They're not allowed to take the jacket and throw over and say, you know, this is all mine. They're actually being penalized, and everything is taken away from them if they do that. Okay, now, the owner, on the other hand, cannot say, you three are okay, but you 15, you can go somewhere else. Everybody must be allowed to pick up the peah. Now, it's very stressful. Typically, the stronger guys, the stronger poor, homelesses, they would win the war, and they would be able to get more of the most of the food, and the weaker ones will not be able to. So what do we do with the weaker ones? So there is a third matana, a third option, which is leket, gleaning. And what does that mean? That means that when they used to harvest by hand, so they would, with one hand they would hold the ears, and with the other one with the sickle they'll cut it, right? So when they cut it, if one or two ears stalks fall on the floor, there on the ground, then the poor, they're not allowed to pick it up. Mm-hmm. If three falls, they can, because it's too much. It's like it's a mistake. Okay, mm-hmm. So that belongs to the balabai, to the owner. So I can imagine that people who would, if you would hire people who would every time leave one or two ears stalks, will not be hired the next time. So people be careful. Mm-hmm. Now, what it means also is that the poor person has to walk all over the field. The whole property, because the 2 ears here, one there, two there, one there. Stalks. Why am I saying ears?
They say ears here too.
They say ears over there?
They
anyway.
say ears here too.
Yeah, ears of green. Huh? Sorry.
I rest my case. So...
That's not a farmer, just a farmer.
So exactly. So they would walk all over so typically the weaker ones, many times the women, will go after the gleaning, after the leket, and the husky guys will go after the peah. And the women will not go after the peah altogether because they know they're going to lose. And, also, the peah is what's left at the end. The peah is what's left at the end. So the husky guys, the strong guys, would come at the end of the day, before they finish, and just right over to the peah. As soon as the owner, the farmer, finishes, they jump at the peah and take what they need and go home. The women or the weaker ones will come early in the morning and will start work with spend the whole day taking one or two at a time,
Just
and
following
the farmer around. Now, what also happened here is that because those the women and the weak ones would usually spend more time there, the farmer, if the farmer is not a nice guy, he's not allowed to tell him anything, but you can control people, and he will be not nice. Just move. What are you in my way? And because how do you harvest? You go one line from beginning to end, and another line back and forth and back and forth. So if the poor person on the way back meets the farmer and is in their way, it's it becomes sticky situation. The situation can become very uncomfortable very, very quickly. So you would have nice farmers who would be welcoming for the gleaners, and people would want to come there, and you will be those, people that are not so nice, and people will, just maybe come after they left and try to pick up those stalks, and after they left.
It's interesting that farming today, it's all done by machinery. And these tractors, they can't get into the corners, so they have to round off.
Right, they round off the corners, right.
So there's even more likelihood that you're going to find something in the corners.
They don't, but it's the same tractor that actually plants the food, so it's not in the corner. When they plant it, they make the same. The corners are bare.
I thought the machines, they spread the seed like that, whereas when you go to harvest it.
Yeah, anyway, but so Ruth the Moabite. Why are we saying Moabite? Because she's telling Naomi, listen, you are an important person, or at least you used to be here, and it's going to be shameful for you to go and collect some leket here and there. Let me do it. I'm a Moabite. Nobody knows me here. So she was extremely, extremely nice. Now, the Moabites also, why are we so, the Torah is so much against the Moabites? Because they did not greet the people who came from Egypt, from the desert. They did not greet them with water and food. They didn't want to sell them even water and food. So here she is, even though she's a Moabite, she overcame the tendency to hold back on the food, and she's going to collect food for Naomi. And Naomi in turn wants her to feel very welcomed and she's very kind. So she's calling her my daughter, BT. She's giving, they're really being very, very nice. And the reason it says, Va'alakta b'shibolim. It should say, Va'alakta shibolim. What is b'shibolim? So those it says, Va'alakta bet shibolim, 2 shibolim, because she told her to begin with, she's going for the gleaning, she's going for the leket, which you're allowed to collect only up to 2 at a time, and not more. So Va'alakta b'shibolim. And Ruth says, I'm going to select a place, I'm going to go around and I'm going to look for somewhere which is more comfortable, that you have a farmer, an owner who's a nice guy. Because, it's very easily, can be not that. Yeah, it can be an horrendous experience. So that's what. So not only she would go to collect, and the work itself is going to be hard. She's going to do a survey. She's going to go this field and that field, and she's going to look and she's going to see, what's going on. And we will see later that she actually collected for 6 days, which corresponds to the 6 days of Shiva after Yontif. Right after Yontif, one of the Shiva days is Shabbos, which people don't go to collect, gifts to the poor, right? They don't collect them, they don't work in the fields. So she actually worked for 6 days, and she worked from very early on And as it says in the next pasuk, which we'll learn next time, she went back and forth home several times, even though it was difficult and it was hot. It's the beginning of the summer. Anyway, but that is the story of the gifts to the poor. So she much rather go and collect 1 or 2 years at a time than accept gifts, and that's what she did.